It's time for Silver and Black Today.
We proved to the whole world that the Silver and Black is the best.
Your go-to podcast for all things Las Vegas Raiders.
Touchdown, Raiders!
We're bringing you the latest news and analysis on Raiders football.
The great players who wore the silver and the black in the past.
I am extremely proud to have been a Raider.
No fluff, just clear, honest, and unfiltered conversation on the Raiders.
It's a miracle in Las Vegas, and the Raiders win.
Dive deep into every game, every play, and every move that shapes the Silver and Black.
Just win, baby.
And now, your hosts, Scott Gulbranson and Mo Moton.
Welcome back, everybody, to Silver and Black Today, sports original podcast. Also heard on the radio in Las Vegas, our K-Dawn 101.5 audience on Saturday night. Yes, all right, ready to go out at 10 p.m. since you're listening to Silver and Black Today. Also, you can hear us tomorrow in the morning, nice and early. For those of you who work overnights in Vegas, there's plenty of you at 4 and 5 a.m. on the Bet Las Vegas. So we're on two stations there, but welcome back to you. It is Scott Branson. It is Mo Moton. We're back to talk Raiders football with you. Do us a favor. Great that you're listening to the show on the radio if you're there with us. If you're listening to us on the podcast, by the way, only audio this week. But if you're listening to us, do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your audio. That's where you can get Silver and Black Today. Also, that dang sweet, just absolutely sweet, free Odyssey app. Right, you can listen to it there. You can listen to the stations there, too. You can listen to the radio stations, which is awesome. So thanks for being with us. As always, just an introduction. If you're with us for the first time, Mo Moton, he's a senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. Also covers the Raider for Sport.com. You can follow him on X at Mo Moton, Moemoton. And I am at LV Gully, Gully, and the show's SNB Today. Welcome back, everybody. Mo, I tell you what, it's summertime. It's that dead period. We had, of course, at least the word leak out about the big trade, the Jalen Ramsey trade from Miami to Pittsburgh. Minka Fitzpatrick's going to Miami, going to South Beach. You know who else is going to South Beach, Mo? Darren Waller. Darren Waller comes out of retirement. Not surprised by that, actually. I mean, I don't know if he thought he was going to blow up Spotify and continue his way of life with his musical career or not. But, you know, you step away from football, sometimes you miss it. And he certainly did there. But I want to get your reaction off the top. I know it's not Raiders related, but a lot of people, including you, had mentioned Jalen Ramsey as possibly somebody the Raiders could have interest in because of that unknown in the defensive backfield. They definitely need depth there and still looking to see who's going to start. But what do you think about the trade of Ramsey to Pittsburgh, and are you surprised?
Not surprised. Pittsburgh seems to be all in on their season. They trade for DK Metcalf. They sign Aaron Rodgers. They bring in Darius Slay. So it seems as though they bring in now Geno Smith and Jalen. It seems like they're looking at trying to make a run for the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, what we think is going to be his last year, because he said, I think this is it for him. But trade doesn't surprise me. The trade with the Giants technically is a trade. Darren Waller was retired, but the Giants still had the rights to his contract. That was a shocker. Because we heard that Omar Kelly from the Miami Herald said that the Dolphins had their eye on Michael Mayer. And Vinny Bonsignore responded, Raiders have no interest in trading Michael Mayer. So the Dolphins felt like we're going to get someone who played for the Raiders at the tight end position. And it was Darren Waller, who was retired. Now he can drop a music video about his new team and join us in South Beach over there.
Yes, and I know that he'll be wanting to play better there. Although that team, that Dolphins team, you go back 2 years ago, I thought the sky was the limit for them. And then last year was very strange, and now they got all these different pieces and parts. It just seems like, and I like Mike McDaniel, I think he's funny, but it just seems like they're all over the place. I can't cohesively understand what it is they're putting together in Miami.
I don't get it. You know, they lose a Pro Bowl tight end. They lose what's still one of the better cornerbacks in the game. Their secondary is a mess. They're still going to probably bring in a cornerback, probably Asante Samuel at some point, junior. But I don't know what the Dolphins are going to be. I don't have high expectations for them simply because of what you said. It seems like they have a lot going on. Bradley, I know this is a Dolphins podcast, but they got two edge rushers coming off of injury, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. we'll see. The way the Raiders tie into the Dolphins is the connection with Michael Mayer, and it seems like Michael Mayer is in Las Vegas to stay for now.
Yeah, which I think is smart. So many people jump to conclusions with him and the fact that, well, but you have Brock Bowers. So what? If you have two, even better, right? And I think Michael Mayer, he had stunted growth, and then, of course, he has personal issues, and he was away from the team for quite a while, so he missed a lot of last year. So why would you look to trade him with his value? Now, he's got value, clearly, right? Being a second-round draft pick, we all know how good he was in college. But if the Raiders play him this year and use him to the best of his ability, and he has a good season, his value next year is worth even more. I'm not saying they should trade him next year either, but the upside for the Raiders is much greater, I think, playing him, keeping him in the fold, and seeing what they can do with that lineup. And I think that he's the kind of kid that Pete Carroll is perfect for, right? Knowing what Michael Mayer's like, knowing the family he comes from, knowing his points of view in general around football and sports, very positive guy. So I think Pete Carroll's the right guy for him, as well as Chip Kelly, right? So it's going to be fun to watch that. Now, we've been through a Raiders offseason full of excitement, full of these positive changes. And I know a lot of Raider fans are like, okay, when's the wheels going to come off? When's something crazy? Now, this is not exactly that. I want to stress this because I talked about it online with some folks who I think misconstrued what I was saying. I'm not saying this is some massive deal and that the Raiders should regret signing or trading for this player, because that's not what I'm saying. But, Mo, you remember Dov Kleiman put out the video of Geno Smith, the Raiders' new quarterback. And it was at a 7-on-7 football camp. And there was some exchange. We don't know the whole context. And Geno Smith actually did come out with the context. But either way, no matter what someone does to you, the only thing you have control over is how you react to it. No matter how ugly, no matter how immature. Now, if somebody's attacking you physically, you have only one thing you can do, which is defend yourself. That's not this. But verbally, leaders, you expect things out of leader. Geno Smith's been a pretty good guy, never really gotten in any trouble. There were some issues in New York in the locker room. Those are all separate and years ago. But he started yelling at this guy expletives. And I just looked at it and said, boy, this is not how you want at a 7-on-7 camp. This is not how you want your quarterback and your leader, who just got a deal to come there, everybody's excited about it, to react to something. I got a lot of people who disagree with me saying I was clutching pearls and I was doing this and I was doing that. Now, you have the right to act how you want to, Mo. And in this world, I understand. I'm 50 years old, okay? I have a different expectation in my mind how everybody should act. I don't care if you're 20 or you're 70, okay? I think there's just proper decorum, and there's the way you react to things. I've been triggered. We've all been triggered, okay? But when you're in this position, you got to be careful. Just wanted to get your thoughts sort of on how it looks for Geno Smith. And again, this is not some massive story that's going to upend the Raiders in their season or his career. I'm not saying that. But I took notice of it.
Right. When I saw it, my initial reaction was it's not a good look for a leadership position player. This is remember, quarterback position. Once you step into that role, you're expected to lead a locker room. People are looking at you as an example. Now he's doing this at a 7-on-7 camp in Florida. So his response was, this is how we talk to people out here where I'm from. So I kind of understand that lingo, because out here in Brooklyn, New York, there are people out here of stature that talk to people a certain way too. And there's
Excuse me, sir.
Right. There's a certain, there's just a certain way we talk around here type of thing. So I get that too. I didn't make a public comment about it because I didn't think it was worthy of a public comment. It's just saying, hey, let's not make it a habit of getting into shouting matches with people who are, in the stands or people who are trying to heckle you. Just really quick, I remember when Nick Sirianni, now he's a head coach. Now that's right. different role. He's a head coach. Geno Smith is a quarterback, but they're both leadership positions. I remember last season, middle of the season, Nick Sirianni got into a shouting match with a fan. And there were officials within the Eagles organization that said that was embarrassing behavior. Why? Because as a head coach, as a leader of a football team, you shouldn't be getting into petty arguments with people in the stands, right? So that's why I draw it to Geno Smith. I know it's a different role.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Sirianni, head coach, leadership. But quarterback, as I said, as a player, you are a leader on that football team. And it's just, again, not a great look. Don't make it a pattern, but also not worthy of public comment, not worthy of a huge discussion. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, they should let go of Geno Smith because he got into a shouting match at a 7-on-7 camp. No, I'm not saying that. Just saying don't make it a pattern.
Right, and it's interesting though because we talked about this last week in the last couple of weeks with how, good for thee but not for me type of stuff, and some of the same people that I got into discussions with, not arguments, because I don't argue about stuff. If I have an opinion, you can like it or dislike it. It doesn't bother me either way. I listen to your responses and take them into account. But some of the same people who were telling me it's not a big deal and I was just doing it for clicks, then we're talking about video of Patrick Mahomes saying no to an autograph to a kid and what a dick he was. So again, it's like, is it really? Are you obligated to give an autograph as a leader, as a pro player? Maybe you're on the golf course, you're playing. I don't know. And listen, I'll be honest. I had an experience like this. I did the same thing Geno Smith did. I was at our pool, our community pool, and there were the teenage kids there. And there's little kids there, right? So if it was me and my 17-year-old son who were there, and these kids are cursing, I don't care. Like, I was that age too. Believe me. But they're cursing in front of a woman and her small children. And I told them to stop. They didn't stop. So I went over and I lost my cool. And I dropped the F-bomb, said, you effing shut up, right? Which I was doing exactly what they would do. So I was just as wrong. But that was me. I shouldn't have done it as a father, as a man, as someone trying to actually stick up for this woman and her small kids. I did the same thing Geno Smith did. So I'm no better than he is. But it's a bad look for me too. I learned from it though. And I'm sure he will too. Geno Smith is a good guy, right? This is not somebody who goes out and is starting crap with people all the time or any of that stuff. He's a good dude. The Raiders are in a good spot to have him. And so, but that was a discussion. Sometimes I discuss things just because I give my opinion on it. I'm not passing judgment per se, but I think it's fun to find out what other people think. I also think that the rules and norms in society have changed significantly because there are things I see every day that blow my mind. Usually I keep it to myself because hey, I can't pass judgment on people. If that's how they act, that's how they act. But I certainly have my thoughts on it. And every once in a while, Mo, just a little bit, I'll share my thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know how it is on Twitter, though. If you say anything, remotely that's critical, people tend to take umbrage with it and want to defend because they think that you're being hyperbolic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just to tie it into philosophical thought about Twitter and social media. I think people lose track of how they don't know what a person's tone is when they type something on Twitter or post something on Twitter. They don't know if they're being hyperbolic or not. You could have been making a passing comment like, oh, it's just not a good look, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. But people took it as, oh, you're posting it on social media, posting it on Twitter, you're making it a big deal, and then we're talking about it on the show. But like I said, I'm not going to turn into a big discussion.
No, and I find it funny though that the whole clicks, like I didn't get a click unless you answered, first of all. And second of all, I don't make anything from it. Nothing benefits me by sharing. Twitter has become the town square. It's where you share. It's no different than when I sit next to my buddy at the cigar lounge or at the bar, or we're hanging out at the lake, right? It's the same thing. It's conversation. Hey, what's up? What do you think of this? Or here's what I think of it. But anyway, very interesting. And again, it's over, it's done with, but I can relate to it because I've done it, as I said, and very recently. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, we're going to get ready for our first break here on Silver and Black today. When we come back, we're going to talk about Raiders who were winners and Raiders who were losers coming out of early camp, right? So of mini camp and all that stuff going into camp, who's got the kind of upper edge or upper, I should say, well, I don't know what I want to say, Mo. Who's got the edge? How about that? How about getting rid of the qualifier? Who's got the edge going into training camp and who maybe has more to prove or didn't do themselves well coming into it? So we're going to look at that. And then segment number 3, we're going to get to your calls on the Raider Nation switchboard. That's right. If you want to call in for the next show, 702-900-7869 is the number. That's 202-900-7869. Leave your name, leave your name and you're calling from so that we know who you are and where you're calling us from so that we can put it on the air. You can also text that number. I got a couple texts, but nobody left their name or where they're texting from. So if you text us to that same number, 702-900-7869, do the same thing. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Mo's piece. We're going to talk about Raiders hot, Raiders not. This is Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports Original podcast, also heard on 101.5 KDON and The Bet in Las Vegas. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Silver and Black Today, segment number 2, talking Raiders football on the radio in Las Vegas on 101.5 FM KDON and on The Bet, which is H2 in Las Vegas. Hello to our Las Vegas audience. For those of you on the podcast feed, we are an Odyssey Sports Original podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us and subscribe. Oh, by the way, we need you to subscribe. We appreciate it. Get ready for the season. Do it now so you don't forget as training camp rolls around later in the month and as we get set for, which I think is going to be an exciting season in Las Vegas. Scott Branson, Mo Moton with you. Thanks for being with us as always. And Mo, we're getting ready for camp. It's this dead period, and it truly is a dead period. But spring standouts. You wrote a piece on Sportsnaut, which is linked below in the description of the show. If you haven't read it yet, which is shame on you if you haven't read it, but you need to go read it. And but you wrote about this, and I think there's some players here, and a couple of them you've mentioned. And I want to get to this because, going into training camp, you can take momentum, especially if you're a rookie. You went in through rookie minicamp, if you went to OTAs, if you went to voluntary training camp, the mini camp that was held for the Raiders. That to me is guys who are in there, they're working, they're putting in their work. Now, there's a downside to that too, because you can go to those things, it's all the right thing to do, but it might point out that you got more work to do than maybe you thought or maybe the team thought. So let's go through some of these guys because I think that we've talked about many of them over the months since the season ended or since they were acquired or drafted by the Raiders. But the premise, I got the premise right there of your piece and kind of what we're looking at as we go through these players.
So basically, I'm just looking at players who either gain some ground on a open starting position, players who may be falling behind. I left out Christian Wilkins because we still don't know. For all we know, Christian Wilkins could pop up there and be ready for training camp. He may not be, but I left him off because it's inconclusive. The guys that I mentioned, the winners and losers in this piece, it's very clear. They're either turn some heads and stir some buzz and potentially put themselves in position to have big roles, or they didn't. And went through 3 winners and losers. And I think spent most time on Dante Thornton. And we talked about Dante Thornton here on the show, but as I said, he is a big winner because he seems to be, based on reports, the biggest star in spring camp. I want to say really quick, Scott,
sure,
for your expectations. A bit.
Yeah. No, and that's where I was going to start with because we talked about Dante Thornton through the minicamp portion and talked about that because you brought up Brian Davis, right? Not Brian Davis. Brian Davis is my good friend. Yes. So you brought him up, and I remember he was going to be the next coming of every great wide receiver that's ever walked the earth. So we have to be careful with that. But with Dante Thornton, I think you saw this, and I know you wrote in the piece, you kind of called him, this would have been Al Davis's pick in this year's class, 6'5", 205, 4'3". I mean, Mo, he is every number you want in a player, right? So you have that walking in the door, and then we got reports from our good friend Levi Edwards there about how Smith had built this great rapport with Geno Smith and all this stuff. So he was doing all the right things, but talk a little bit why that's so important for a rookie, especially a guy, he's not a first rounder. He's not a second rounder. He's a fourth rounder. And so for a guy like that to turn that many heads, to have that kind of impression is a big deal.
Right. So there was talk about concerns about his limited route tree. Didn't seem to be a problem at the spring workouts, practices. He's getting open. He was beating double teams. Now we'll see what he does with pads on, but at least for now, it looked good when it had to be, right? So OTAs, spring workouts are great for athletic players. Guys just show their speed, hands, all the physical tools you like to see in some of these young guys. So he was able to show that during the spring, and it's a very good sign for his role, his potential role. He could be wide receiver 2 at most, because we know Jacoby Myers is a wide receiver 1. He could be wide receiver 2 by some point in the upcoming season if he continues to progress well over Trey Tucker and Jack Besh, who's the rookie second rounder. But we'll see.
Yeah, and then and I just think too that if they can, if he becomes even in year one, if he becomes even 60, 70% of what people think he can become, that's a big deal for this team, especially in that fourth round, especially with his size and with what they have going on offense. So, and I want to go to another winner you have in your piece, if you don't mind. We'll get to the quote unquote losers or those that struggled. And that's Michael Mayer, right? We talked early in the show about the rumors about him being traded. This has been going on since last offseason, including reports that said he was going to for sure be traded, which of course never came true. Then you talked about Omar Kelly's report in the Miami Herald about the Dolphins, and then the Steelers had interest as well. But then, of course, they got Geno Smith. You look at Michael Mayer, I think he becomes one of those guys that's easy to forget because he was much ballied when he came out. Obviously, second round pick. A lot of people talked about it, including this show. And then all the turmoil happens in the organization. And then he's got his personal issues and he's away from the team for a significant amount of time. I think people forget how good he is and what an asset he can be to this team.
I think people not only forget, but I think there are a lot of people who gave up on him already. And
yeah,
I think
good way to put it.
That's part of the problem with a lot of assessments of these players is a lot of fans expect these players to pop within the first 2 years because they're used to seeing Brock Bowers doing what he's doing, Jaden Daniels doing what he's doing, and they're like, why doesn't, why can't every rookie do that? Why can't every early round rookie do that? And that's just not the reality. Some guys pop after year 2. Some guys it takes 3 years. Some guys, they have to go to a new team. And they may pop in their 5th or 6th year. So everyone grows at a different rate. You talked about Michael Mayer having some personal issues, so he was away from the team. He basically played a year and a half on the pro league. He also played in some bad systems. Let's think about it. Didn't mesh well with Josh McDaniel's system. The Raiders had some turnover with their offensive play calling position last year. You had Luke Getsy. You had Scott Turner. So he's been through a lot of change on the offensive side of the ball. And think about how unstable the Raiders have been offensively. So now you give him an innovative, proven offensive play call in Chip Kelly. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and remember, 6 games last year he missed. It's 35% of the season, basically. And it was right at the beginning of the season after week 4, after week 3. So that just stunts it. And then, of course, last year with the offense was just such a, like, as you mentioned, for all the names, was such a mess. So it's almost like a lost year for him in many ways. I'm not just making excuses to make excuses. It's valid. And you put it out there very well. Okay, now we look at some guys who might be in some trouble or at least didn't do themselves any favor. And that's Jacorian Bennett, a guy that you and I have been very high on for a long time. But a torn labrum, it's tough to come back from, Mo.
Yeah, so he said this is the first time he's had both his shoulders because he's had shoulder issues going back to college. I listed him as a loser, not because I don't think he could still win the starting job, but it's very clear that he's falling behind. Because let me tell you, if Darren Porter continues to impress, the Raiders are probably going to go with the young rookie because there's so much upside by starting him early in his career. Eric Stokes has been the other boundary corner. I think Jacorian Bennett could probably take his position. If I were betting today, I would say Jacorian Bennett and Darren Porter would be your starting boundary cornerbacks. But as of right now, ahead of training camp, Jacorian Bennett is behind. He's been playing with the second team defense because he's coming back off of that shoulder injury. He's got to make up some ground. He can't just show up at training camp and say, well, I played well for 10 games last year. Give me the starting job. He's going to have to impress his new coaches, particularly Pete Carroll.
If you go back to minicamp, one of the guys we talked about, surprisingly, was that Jeremy Chin was playing in the slot, right? And we saw that, which was not good news for cornerback Holmes. Holmes. Talk about Holmes and his position there, which would be in the slot.
The fact that they're pulling Darnay Holmes off the field for Jeremy Chin to move into the slot and then have Lonnie Johnson Jr. play safety tells you how they feel about the slot position. And I'm still surprised they have not signed Mike Hilton yet, because he could solve your slot issues and then you wouldn't have to move Jeremy Chin around. Now, part of the beauty of having Jeremy Chin is he can play multiple positions. He can play both safety spots and slot. They want to utilize that versatility, but what's the point then of having Darnay Holmes there and not be a stiff competitor for that spot? Why not just upgrade the slot cornerback position? So for right now, it looks like Darnay Holmes is going to be a backup and could be in danger of getting cut, even though he knows Patrick Graham's system from playing in it in New York for 2 years.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. I mean, but again, this is where when you have a new coaching staff, even though Patrick Graham's back, still with the rest of the staff being new and with Pete Carroll and some of the players they brought in, certainly raises your eyebrows and says, okay, what's going to happen there? Now, you mentioned Lonnie Johnson just a minute ago. Lonnie Johnson Jr., of course, played with Houston for a long time, and a guy who's really versatile, right? Here's a guy that fits the Pete Carroll mode as far as size goes, 6'2"-ish, right? 2-something. Talk about him and with what we just talked about. If Chin's coming in the slot, then you need another safety back there to go with Polamalu. So is he the guy? Is Lonnie Johnson Jr., you think he's got an upper hand?
Yeah, Jeremy Chin moving into the slot is why I brought the conversation of maybe safety is a need for the Raiders, because Isaiah Polamalu is the only surefire starter there. Do you bring in Justin Simmons or Jordan Whitehead or John Johnson III to play safety alongside Isaiah Polamalu? For now, the Raiders' solution at safety when Jeremy Chin moves to the slot is to insert Lonnie Johnson Jr. into the starting role. Now, I remember when Lonnie Johnson Jr. came out of Kentucky, he was a cornerback initially, and he has now transitioned to be a safety. As you said, has the versatility, but fits the Pete Carroll mold. About 6'2", 213. Pete Carroll likes his long cornerbacks, defensive backs. So he's got a shot in Pete Carroll's system to be a starter. He has played 83 games in his career, has only started in 20, so he's been mostly a rotational backup player. We'll see how he does in a featured role when Jeremy Chin is in the nickel. Right.
They might have to do that out of necessity. But again, I think the Raiders, to your point, I think there's going to be more signings there. But good stuff. If you haven't read this piece, we'll keep track of these guys, obviously, as they get into camp here in a few weeks. But make sure you go up. It's listed below in the description, both video, because we're going to put the audio up on video too, so you video people don't miss out this week. And then also in the podcast description below, you will see a link directly to Mo's article, which we discussed, where you can get a little more detail, although Mo was pretty detailed there, so you'll get it there. All right, we're going to take our final break because we want to leave time for your phone calls here on Silver and Black today. So if you want to get in on the next show, 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869 is the number for you to take part in the show. It's Mo, it's Scott. This is Silver and Black today on the radio, 101.5 KDON, The Bet in Las Vegas, and also Odyssey Sports Original Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Home stretch here, the final segment of this edition of Silver and Black today. Odyssey Sports Original Podcast, also heard on the radio, 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas, as well as the Bet HD2 in Las Vegas. Hello to our Vegas audience, and hello to Raider Nation all over the world, wherever you're listening to us. We got listeners in Saudi Arabia. We have listeners in Australia. We have listeners in the UK. You name it, we have listeners there, because Raider Nation is international. So is the international man of just mystery and just everything, and that's Mo Moton. He's my partner here. At Mo Moton on Twitter, MOEMOTON, X. I am at LV Gully as we get set for this show, and we get set for your calls, Mo. And this is going to be interesting. We have a very familiar voice that's going to lead us off here, which is always interesting. And this call, I actually listened to this whole call because I really wanted to think through it. So we're going to put some time into this. Are you ready? You sure here? It's not anybody weird. It's, somebody you know well. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, here's the call. We're going out to our buddy Murph from Raiders Fan Radio. Of course, you guys know Murph and the One Nation Foundation, the work he does there, which we also donate all of our super chats on YouTube. When we're doing that, we give those to those guys about. But here's Murph.
Scott and Mo, your buddy Murph here, fifth time, long time. I'm calling because I'm having some thoughts this week. I was posting some videos on social media and it were old videos from the Oakland days. And I'm finding myself now headed in, to 6 years now, really mourning the loss of the Oakland experience for the Raiders. And I want to get your guys' input on, do you think it would ever get back to even resemble the experience that we had in Oakland in Las Vegas? And I say this is from somebody that loves Las Vegas. I love the kitschiness of it. I love, gambling. I love a pool day at Bellagio. I love the shows. Like, I love Las Vegas. I love Allegiant Stadium. It is an absolute love letter to the Raiders, and I love Allegiant Stadium. And I've been there for some great moments, from Derek calling the timeout to send us to the playoffs, to Chandler Jones spiking Mac Jones' face into the earth, and coming out with that surprise win. That said, I'm not an advocate for violence, but I miss the grittiness of Oakland, and I miss the experience in the electricity of Oakland, not just negatively directed in the form of verbal harassment towards other teams as fans, but just for the organic nature of it and the way that city and that team went hand in hand. And maybe it's hit me more too as I get a little bit older, and now with all of my three favorite professional sports teams now leaving the city, that in this stadium, in this area that I grew up in, and even though I don't live there anymore, and I haven't lived in California for a good minute now, but still, that said, it's just really hitting me. And so I want to get you guys' take on that. I don't think it's ever going to resemble that ever again. And I think I just need to be okay with that. And I would, encourage other fans, especially older fans like me that did spend so much time in the Oakland Coliseum, to we got to move past it, and it's tough. And so, anyway, I just want to get you guys' take on that. Scott, I know you've had to deal with a team moving, leaving your city, and also you know what it's like to be, a sports fan in Las Vegas and to live that life. So I'm just curious to see what you guys have to say. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. See you. Bye.
Wow, what a great call from Murph there. And something we hear a lot from Raider fans, right, Mo? Sometimes with a very negative a narrative with it, meaning, it sucks about it. And then other times just people like Murph who kind of miss that, all of the things that were Oakland, the grittiness, the scene there, the parking, all that stuff, right? And I just want to start with this because I think a couple things. Number one is change is always hard. Doesn't matter what it is, right? And I pulled two quotes, right? One's from an author named Amelia Barr. And it says, quote, "All changes are more or less tinged with melancholy. For what we are leaving behind is part of ourselves," right? So that's what's at play here. Yes, it has to do with Oakland because that's where it was, and the Raiders were there for 47 years in two stints, right? Before 47 years. That's a long time. And Murph, yes, you don't live in California. You haven't lived for a while. I haven't lived in California for 15 years either, right? But you still, all those memories, remember, life is about places, no doubt about it. But it's the relationships, it's the people, it's the moments spent with your friend, your father, your mother, your daughter, your son, whoever it was. That's really what you miss, I believe. Not the atmosphere, absolutely, right? Because it was a crazy atmosphere. It was great. So to me, that's what it's about, is that's part of you. And when part of you no longer is there anymore, no, it doesn't happen. There's no opportunity for it to happen. Even with going to a football game, it's part of you is gone. And there's another famous author, Victor Hugo, right? He says, melancholy is the happiness of being sad. And I thought, Mo, that was perfect, because that is what melancholy is. It's remembering moments that have gone by, great moments, happy moments, and then feeling bad that they aren't happening anymore, right? Or that they're not, or that they were in the past. It's a normal emotion. And I think with Raider Nations, the most passionate sports fan base there is, that to me is what this is about.
So first I'll say Murph kind of answered his thoughts at the end of his call, where he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, Las Vegas is not going to be Oakland. It is not Oakland. No matter what the Raiders do, even if they're winning, It is not going to feel the same as it was in Oakland.
Right.
Different city, different area, and as you said, you're leaving memories behind. So you can try to recreate those memories, but it won't be the same. It won't be another black hole in Oakland. That's no matter what happens, you cannot recreate, you cannot duplicate that. And as Murph also said in his call, he's just going to have to move on and deal with that reality that those memories are those memories. Cherish them, because I know Murph had some great memories there with his late father, I believe, too, in Oakland, going to games. But now you have to look forward to making new memories. And I analogize it to moving, right? Most of us has moved at least once in our lives, right? And usually when you move, especially that first move, it's a bit of you're happy for new beginnings, but you're leaving behind your childhood. Maybe you've had kids in that home, maybe your family, all types of stuff that you leave behind when you move. But you're looking forward to the next chapter, looking forward to what's next. And you hold on to those memories from the old place, but then you're looking ahead to, okay, what can we create in the new place? And that's what you have to, that's how you have to view it, in my opinion, when it comes to the Raiders going from Oakland to Las Vegas.
Yes, and I just go back to the Victor Hugo quote, melancholy is the happiness of being sad. So you're sad that it's gone, but you're also happy because it was such great memories. And I do the same thing with experiences in my life, whether it was a concert, whether it was a game. Because even in my case, I'm a big San Diego Padres fan. I grew up in San Diego, seeing them at old Jack Murphy Stadium, which was like the Oakland Coliseum. It was a cookie cutter stadium. And when they moved to Petco Park, I was so excited. And then I got there and I was like, this place is freaking sterile. This has no character whatsoever. Now, 20 years later, it's one of the best ballparks in the major leagues. And when you go back there, it feels like they've been there forever. So again, time and the new fans, and I say new fans, younger fans who didn't experience that. I'm sad that they didn't experience Oakland, but at the same time, you're right. You'll see new traditions start in Vegas. Now, maybe they haven't gotten publicity and aren't as big as like the Raiders super fans and all that became that way in Oakland, but it'll happen. It'll happen. And I think you said it well, Mo. So Murph, always great, man. Appreciate you calling in. And I totally feel for everybody who feels the same way. All right. Now we're going out to Jesse. Jesse is a quick call, but here's what Jesse had to say.
My name is Jason Holmes.
Jason Holmes. Okay, so Mo, he was a little muddled there, but he said, why do people think the Raiders will be at the bottom of the division? It goes back to a discussion we had over the last couple of weeks and last week specifically about the Raiders record, where we saw people telling us they're going to have 11 wins. And we kind of went through that explanation of the last place schedule and how that can be very misleading. For somebody out there who really believes the Raiders can't possibly be the worst team in the division, what would you say to them?
I would say, look at the gap that the Raiders have to make up, right? So last year, the Raiders were 6 games behind third place. Let me say that again. The Raiders were 6 games behind third place. So not only were they last in the division last year, they were a distant 4th in the division last year. Every other team won double-digit games last year. So for the Raiders not to finish 4th this year, you're either one of those teams has to regress. You're saying Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs fall off the mantle in the AFC West. They've been reigning over the AFC West for quite some time now. The Chargers, who have Jim Harbaugh, who's won everywhere he's been, all of a sudden regress, even though they've added more pieces to their offense. Or the Denver Broncos somehow, with Sean Payton, who is another proven Super Bowl winning head coach, regress, even though people are now saying that they may have the best defense in the league with Jade Barron there, with Taloa Hufanga there, added in free agency. So you're saying that for the Raiders to not finish last, 1, they have to make a big jump, and 2, one of those 3 teams has to regress quite significantly because they all won double-digit games, were playoff teams.
It would be shockingly degrading themselves.
Right. So my point is it's all about perspective. The Raiders can be a lot better than they were last year, but doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be out of last place in the division, because they can finish 8-9, double their win total, and still finish last in the division if every other team holds court and finishes with double-digit wins again. So it's a very tough task and arguably the toughest division in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders could have what I think would be a very, very good year and win 9 games and still be in last place and out of the playoffs.
Exactly.
Right. So, and I know a lot of people are going to come at us and say, well, the Broncos are going to suck. And listen, that's the fan hat. I get it. Oh, the Chargers are always overrated. That is true, but they've only had Jim Harbaugh now going into second year. That's a whole different situation. It's a whole different, you cannot look at 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and say, well, the Chargers were overrated, which they were. I'm not disagreeing with you, but different day. Just like it's a different day for the Raiders, as you guys are all saying, and I agree with that. But it's a tough division, man. I think it's finally going to be as good as we thought it was going to be like 3 or 4 years ago, which it wasn't, because each of these teams has gotten better, and we'll see, But yeah, injuries can certainly change. I mean, something happens to Patrick Mahomes, God forbid. Something happens to any starting quarterbacks or a big player on any of these rosters, and things can change very quickly. That can happen. But again, I don't think you count on that. So we'll see what happens. All right. Jason, thank you so much for your call. Now we're going out to our buddy Jacob in Fresno. We haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks. I don't know if he's been on vacation, getting a tan, getting that Speedo on, what he's doing. But here's Jacob.
Moton. This is Jacob from Fresno. What's up, guys? Last time I called, I had a very what would you call it, ambiguous question. It was open to a lot of interpretation, I guess you should say. There's a lot of room for an answer. This one is a lot more definite and specific. I asked you guys, what do we need to fix on the defense? But I realized, I kind of already know. I think we all know. I think we all look at this defense and we say we don't really have a solid starting safety. We don't have somebody who is reliable, has great experience, and it's a little, how would you say, scary, frightening. I'm perturbed. I'm disturbed. I'm looking at this situation at safety and wondering what it is that we're going to do. But the thing is, John Spytek seems to be doing several sneaky good moves. Like I was telling the guys at Raiders Fan Radio, I keep thinking I'm going to see on the news tomorrow, Aaron Donald signed a 7-year deal for $1 million with the Raiders. That's the type of stuff we're doing. How is the guy available for what you got him for? It didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But that being said, I am tossing the PS5 controller over to you guys, and we're going to edit roster right now. What are we doing? Who are we picking up as a free agent? Or what are we doing with our safeties as it is right now? Do we have somebody? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that maybe a guy like Trey Taylor's going to come over and take over the roster? He just needs an opportunity. He just needs to be put in that spot. Or do you trust Jeremy Chin? I don't know. I don't see it from guys like Isaiah Palamal. I think the guy's a great special teamer. He's going to be a good depth piece to hold on to. But right now, I don't see that person who's taken the position. And I think when we have that, we recognize we don't really have somebody. We need somebody right there. That seems to be the big hole. What are you guys doing with that PS5 controller? What are you doing? Who are you picking up in free agency? All right, guys, I appreciate you. You take it easy. God bless you. And go Raiders.
All right, Jacob in Fresno. We got a couple minutes left, Mo. I think you kind of answered this earlier and I agree with him on the safety situation, but also cornerback. And I think interior defensive line, if Christian Wilkins has a big setback and he misses significant time, then the Raiders need to think about how they can go acquire somebody. And it might not be a free agent. It might be a trade. I don't know, but there's definitely work to be done on that roster.
Yeah, the two names I mentioned earlier in the show, you grab Mike Hilton to fill the slot cornerback position so you don't have to move Jeremy Chin out of the safety position. You solve basically two needs with one move. Or if you want to keep Jeremy Chin in the slot, you sign Justin Simmons at safety. He's a center fielder. You can still get those turnovers in the back end. The Raiders have had trouble forcing turnovers in recent years since Charles Woodson and Reggie Nelson were back there at the safety spot. So Mike Hilton at slot cornerback, Justin Simmons at safety. That'll solve your secondary issues.
There we go. Okay, we're going to get in real quickly. We got one more call. It's our buddy Tariq in Chicago. Here's Tariq.
What's up, Scott and Mo? This is Tariq calling you guys from Chicago. Happy 1st of July. I want to start out by saying one thing. That's why they pay me the big bucks. You got to love seeing that fiery, competitive side of Geno Smith. It's incredible how people are blowing it out of proportion. He's got that fire with him on the sidelines. And, it's amazing how someone can take something and just completely try to take it out of context. Great to see he has that side, and I can't wait for him to see what he can do with us this upcoming season. Regarding your guys' discussion on the last show regarding the running back room, obviously, Genty, I think Mozart is a savvy veteran, and I think he's going to definitely play the backup to Genty. He's a smart, savvy veteran who's seen and done it all. His experience will certainly pay off with a young quarterback room. For the third guy, I'd love to see McCormick. Obviously, you got to stay healthy, improve blocking, things of that nature. But I think he's got a really, really good feeling, and he's got a good burst, and I think he would complement Genty really, really well. I will be surprised if Dylan Laube makes the roster. Same goes for Zamir White. Laube did little to nothing last year. I don't even see him making the practice squad. Zamir White, he bulked up and he looks the part, but really had little to no impact when given a golden opportunity to have the keys to the car. So, you got to have some depth, but I do think Genty, Mozart, and McCormick will round out the three of the guys with running back in our running back room. Regarding all-time great defensive ends, obviously you got your Max Crosby. We got Max Crosby. I love Howie Long. Khalil Mack is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I will always say shame on you, John Gruden, for jettisoning him in his prime when he was just tearing it up for us. Ted Hendricks, Ben Davidson, and I also loved me some Greg Townsend. I think it is a travesty that Townsend is not in the Hall of Fame with 109.5 career sacks. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. Hope you guys are having a great summer. Looking forward to your show this week, and I'll talk to you guys later. Go Raiders. Bye-bye.
All right, there's Tariq in Chicago. Mo, we got about 30 seconds. I don't know that the Raiders are done at running back either.
We'll see. Raheem Mostert has an injury history, so I think if Sincere McCormick can stay healthy, maybe they are done. But Sincere McCormick couldn't stay healthy last year, had a short stint, only played 5 games, and got hurt during the Falcons game. So if they have an injury concern there between McCormick and Mostert, I could see them adding another running back, especially Dylan Laube and Zamir White do not make the roster.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to watch. And good stuff from all of you. 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869 is the number. Mo, every end of the show this past month, I've stumbled on my words. I don't know what it is. I'm so excited to get done with it. I don't know what the heck it is. Anyway, Mo, let everybody know what you got coming up this week so they can follow you and keep track of your work.
BR Creators, BR Lives, whatever you want to call them. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Be there. We're going to have some fun topics now that it's July. It's the summer. I have some fun things to talk about over on Sports Night. As always, I'll have a piece there talking to you about what to look ahead toward training camp for specifically position battles. And that's why I'll project my early winners for some of the contested spots on the roster.
All right, there you go. Make sure you follow Mo on X, Mo Moton, Moemoton. The show is SNB Today. I am at LV Gully there if you want to chat with us. Also, do us a favor, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. You don't have to wait for us on the radio. We appreciate you being there too, but make sure you subscribe wherever you get your audio, rate and review. And do us a favor, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we usually have the video version of the show. This week we do not. It's audio only, but nonetheless, do that there. I want to thank you for being with us. For my partner, Mo Moton, I am Scott Branson. Thanks to our producer at Odyssey, Mike Robier, and our executive producer in Las Vegas, Mark Bonilla. Take care, Raider Nation, and we will talk to you next week.